Welcome, any and all, to the Movie Club Collective, the show where each week we take a movie that has come and gone from the theaters and we give it our own collective review and have a thoughtful little discussion about it along the way. Introducing today's judges, I'm your host, John Olson. My typical compatriot here is Jose Venutolo.
Yes!
Filmmaker extraordinaire. Joining us for a second time, we have Briana Redmount, actress.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we have first-time attendee, Claire Garand, writer-director. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can tell she's a pro because she actually has a nice background.
Yes.
I worked on it.
Who poster?
It's more than some of us do. So thank you so much for joining us. This week's film will be Amelie, directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. It came out in February of 2001 with a running time of 2 hours and 2 minutes. The film is rated R for sexuality.
It should.
Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel, Jose.
Yes. Very conservative.
the most. So we're coming. This is our second time doing a narrative film under the new format, and I've been kind of talking a lot about it at the beginning of these episodes. But that's still because it's a bit of a work in progress. So of note, we changed the categories. Our first film that we did this with was The Warriors, and we've decided to change some of the categories that we're going to judge it based on. We think that these cover the bases a little better. So I'll go over them briefly before we get started. They're going to be story, production value, which will include cinematography as well as sort of costumes and sets and props, editing, sound design and music, and performance. We did not include directing this time around because we kind of felt like it is encompassed in all the categories anyway. So if you want to talk about directing, it kind of fits into really any of the categories. So we'll go through them one by one in the order that I just listed, and we'll each have a chance to give up to 5 points, which a grand total possible of 100 points. Though I will note, as it gets into like the 80s, it becomes very difficult for movies to score above 80 because we all have to give it at least a 4 in every category for that to happen. So it's not Rotten Tomatoes. It's not, it's a different way of scoring. It's more like the Olympics. In honor of the Olympics.
You're so thorough. Like it's like you should explain government.
Maybe someday. So I want it to be comprehensible.
You are very comprehensible.
So we'll kick out in kind of the old-fashioned way, I guess, which was before we get right into the story. What was your experience with the film before you watched it for this? Had you seen it before? What were your experiences with it? Do you want to take us away, Claire?
Sure. So this is the third time I've seen this movie. The first time was at French camp with French subtitles.
Makes sense.
So that was kind of cool, so that I saw it in French first.
Was it dubbed?
No.
It was French with French subtitles.
Yeah, because it was French camp, so we couldn't have any English at all.
Makes sense.
But it was very, very hard, because, watching it even with English subtitles, it's hard to read the subtitles fast enough to know what's going on. Sometimes the narrator speaks so fast. So it was really hard to understand what was happening, I'm not going to lie. Then the second time I watched it with English subtitles, and then that was with my parents. And I just wanted them to see it because I thought it was good. And then I was like, oh, I know more plot now. So this time it was like more of a refresher, but I did pick up some things that I definitely hadn't picked up before, so it was cool.
What about you, Jose?
I definitely seen it more than 3 times. I just can't remember how many specifically, but I did see it not in movie theaters, but close to the opening date, like close to that time. I saw it with a group of friends back in Venezuela, and after that several times, I always acknowledge it as a great film, But I do have to say that this is the first time that I've seen it after film school, and it carries completely differently.
Oh, bless you.
Oh my god! Oh my god! You okay?
What timing?
I think I'll live.
I was just coming to you.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping to do it before, but anyway, hopefully, I was hoping that Jose would talk more, but oh well.
Oh, it's so off-brand of me.
It really is.
I'm also with Jose, where like I've seen it too many times to count. I guess the first time I watched it, I was probably in 8th grade, and I caught it on TV. I've always loved it, so.
Okay. So you've seen it a few times. So we're all pretty familiar. This was my second time seeing it. I saw it back in 2003, 2004, somewhere around there. And I had forgotten more than I realized upon this rewatch. Like you said, there are a lot of little details, and I remembered kind of some of the major points, but I'd forgotten a lot of the details. So let's go ahead and talk about the story. What did you guys think about the story? Does anyone want to go first? Anyone want to chime in?
I say whoever is to my upper right.
I'll go you. I'll go you, Jose. What do you think of the story?
The story, well,
and the writing.
I mean, I have to say that I wasn't the first 5 minutes, like the whole introduction of her, the whole credit sequence, to me was wonderful. Like I would say, I would even venture to say that is my favorite part of the film.
The opening?
Yes, because it's not only a narrative that we're not used to, that I knew already that this film had, but haven't seen as a filmmaker, like the way that it starts, the way that it starts being narrated, it feels like a combination between the art of filmmaking and what storytelling used to be. You know what I mean? It's like somebody just sitting, telling you something with every single detail and explaining what the details could mean for you, even when they're menial. And then it just goes into this collage of scenes of a child experiencing the world for the first time, because that is what the whole opening sequence is about. Yeah. It's like they're introducing Amelie, and then they're showing you how Amelie is becoming Amelie as a kid. And then it just picks up. Like by the moment that you get her as an adult, you understand who this kid is. I thought that was wonderful. And the rest of the story follows a similar path, but because it's just a moment in her life, then it just felt, it didn't feel as big as the opening for me.
What about overall though?
Oh, I mean, overall,
you're just kind of focused on the opening there.
No, I know, because I mean it's the thing that impacted me the most. But overall, it still feels like a proper storytelling. There is some aspect of the narrative that I attribute to culture that might have eluded me a little. Or lost me in the way that American films, which I'm more used to watch, have in a certain way of narrative. But it is a refreshing story. It is a story that even when it has elements of like adult elements, and because it's R-rated, it's you still watch it and you understand that it still makes you feel like a kid in that sense. And I feel that the story it's very right on point on that.
Do you have
it's like it's a kid's story for adults.
So out of 5, what do you think? Well,
sorry?
What do you think out of 5?
I would say 4.
You say 4?
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Claire? What are some of your thoughts on the story?
I love that you said kid story for adult. That was pretty dead on. But for me, I'm torn because it's so well written. It's so interesting, and I think about that. We know they say like this person likes, dislikes, and all those shots. And I think about that for myself sometimes. Like if I find something that I really like, and I'm like, Claire likes this, cool shot. So it's affected my life, kind of, I guess, in that minuscule way. But I found it does bother me how cluttered it is. There's so much going on, and sometimes you don't pick up on stories, and sometimes you do, and sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. Which is I guess not wrong, but it does kind of bother me. there's already so much happening, and then they just keep adding and adding and adding and adding, and it's like, take it back, like just like maybe step back, maybe don't do this like other side storyline off the side of this already side storyline.
Yes.
You know, like you have to remember that she watches the cat for her like friend who's an airline pilot, and then the airline pilot comes back like an hour and a half later, and it's just like, oh, it's like incredible. But that's the detail though too.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
there's a lot going on. I think that's one of the reasons I didn't remember it so well, because it's just like there's so many side stories.
Yes.
It's like which one is the core story? Like which one is Amelie's story?
So number wise, it was hard because I mean there's so many quotes I remember from it and stuff. I was between a 3 or a 4, and I'm still kind of between.
You can stay on the fence for now.
Okay. 3.5 maybe.
Yeah.
Can we do half?
Can we do half?
We haven't yet. What about you, Briana? What are some of your thoughts on it?
Let's see. I do agree with Claire in that it does feel very cluttered. That there's a lot going on, but I think everything is set up pretty well. I love the reveal of the repairman for the photo booths. All the reveals I think are really great, because even after watching it a couple of times, you still have to figure out, like, oh yeah, that she gave the gnome to the airline pilot or airline person, and then you're also figuring out with the father who's so confused about the gnome.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also trying to figure out who's the man in all the pictures that's constantly going around town in all the photo booths. I don't know. I would also give it a 4. I think that's my number.
All right. Yeah, I agree with a lot of your points. I think there is a lot of extraneous detail, and some of that does add flavor, but I do kind of agree with Claire in that, like, the film doesn't always know when to stop. When it comes to that, there's so much extra, and some of it pays off. A lot of it pays off, but some of it doesn't pay off. And I find myself, like, wondering about those things. So, like, one of the big things that doesn't pay off is they give sort of the details about, like, what people like. So-and-so likes this, or doesn't enjoy this. And one of the ones they give for Amelie is skipping stones. And we see her doing it a couple times throughout the film. And, like, throughout the film, she's collecting stones and, like, putting them in their pocket. But that didn't really pay off to me in any real way. Like, it was just kind of like constantly reminding us that she was as sort of quirky as everybody else. Because it's like she's always noticing other people's quirks, and like this is one of the big ones they give us. But I kind of felt like there was somewhat lack of payoff there. Also, I mean, like the Amelie and the guy that she falls in love with, they really don't speak to each other in the film. At the very last scene where they meet and a little bit over the phone are the only time. So they have one scene where they share dialogue in person, and the rest of it's over the phone. But it is very charming and enchanting the whole way through. I think I'm on the 4. I think I like enough about it. And it is so French, and it's like...
It's very French.
It's like trying to be as French as you can possibly get a French film to be.
Yes.
Even the director's name, Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And the original title of the film is actually...
The Incredible World of Amélie Poulain.
No, it is Le Fabuleux Destin d'Amélie Poulain.
Oh, yeah, The Fantastic Destiny of Amélie,
So, yeah, very French, and of course, as we brought it to the States, we're like, one word.
Somebody went like, oh, let's call Amélie Poulain, somebody does make it complicated.
Yeah. One thing, before we move on from the writing, one of the things I liked is kind of, there is a lack of straightforwardness in it, even in the way that Amelie interacts with people. So I think the best example of this is the relationships she sets up at the bar. So she, like, hooks up the 2 patrons, and it, like, they have awesome sex. but then it like falls apart because they're still who they are. Like they're still their weird, quirky selves, and it doesn't like come back to slap Amelie in the face or anything. It just kind of happens, and I think this is a more European thing to do in film than American. And I like it. For me, it's refreshing as someone who doesn't probably see
You
enough.
like that there's no like consequence for hooking the two up, or
Yeah, I like that I like that the fallout doesn't involve Amelie. Like she just kind of sets it up and allows it to happen, and it just plays out how it's going to play out, and like it's not this fairy tale ending for them. So I guess I like that about it. It's a different.
I like that.
It's a different take than I think we're used to. Did
Gotcha.
you decide on a 3 or 4, Claire?
I didn't. I did remember that one of the other reasons that I knocked it down a little was because the very end when she's like, "Where's that guy?" and they're like, "Oh, I think he left with Georgette," and she's like, "Oh my God, Georgette must be in love with," or whoever she was, one of the other waitresses, and then she just like, I don't know, it was
She
like
implodes.
one of those like really like overdone miscommunications, like, oh, he likes her now. It's like, wait, what? Like, that's not, it was so like not in the pattern of the movie that like,
I think I would defend it a little bit just because I also kind of hate those kinds of moments. Like
Yeah.
I get very cringy and sometimes upset about it. Just ask Briana when I watch things. I get emotional towards characters. But I felt like it was in character for Amelie. She's a very insecure person. She's dealing with being an introvert who wants to like do extroverted things, but like she's very shy and cowardly the whole movie, and like she is given misinformation throughout her life. I don't know, I kind of felt like it was in character for her to overreact a little bit just because she's investing so much on this very flimsy kind of plan.
yeah, I guess it's less of her reaction and more of just like that it exists at all, like that moment was like written, you know,
That's fair.
But I think I'm gonna have to do a 4 because it is so good, and like I'm just trying to be devil's advocate. I think.
That's. I mean, it's, if you want to do a 3, okay, we're going 4.
I'm gonna go 4.
All right. So I guess we'll go on to production value. Does anyone want to kick us off on production value?
I will.
Okay.
So, I mean, a lot of it, what's a glaring thing about this movie is how orange-yellow it is. The lighting is so weird that way. But it actually, I think it adds a lot to the dream-like world that they've created, that it can't be real lighting. It can't be, truthful because it's all a dream. It's this like weird fantasy world where men come up from the sewers and give you cool phrases to talk back to people. Like, I wish I had that. Like that. Let me tell you, every time I thought about something 5 minutes after the conversation happened, that'd be great. But
just have someone yell it to you right on time.
Yeah. So it's such a weird. It's a weird version of Paris. It's a dreamlike version of Paris. And I think the most striking thing about the production value is the way that they've colored the whole film. I don't know what you guys think about it, but...
You have thoughts, Claire?
Yeah, I agree. I think the coloring's awesome. I've seen 2 other films by this director, and he does a similar thing in both. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of the other films, and the lighting's always...
Yeah, it's always
very
like
extreme.
this. Like,
what was the other one? The Children of Micmacs.
I saw Micmacs, and I saw... he did Delicatessen, right?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw City of Lost
was it that
Children. And then I think I saw some of A Very Long Engagement, which was his follow-up to Amelie.
He did the City of Lost
And
Children.
that one's also very yellow. Yeah, City of Lost Children. That one's very like green, and it's got like a lot of blacks in there too. But like, yeah, anytime there is light, it's either very yellow or very green.
I always picked up like this one. They did a lot of like green with pops of red was like a very big theme, which was cool. I don't know. I just think the production was gorgeous. The like shots are gorgeous. They're really consistent, which I think adds to like how nice it looks, that you expect it, like they set up rules in the beginning and it like follows their rules that they set up. I also, what was I going to say? Now I lost it. Production value. Did I take
That happens sometimes.
If you want to think on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, somebody
I'm
else.
like
I'll
a
just-
big fan.
I'll just throw in. I was surprised because I didn't really remember the like CGI in the movie. There's a
I didn't
The
either.
little, like,
Oh, is that going
animals
ahead
and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the first one that stood out to me on this watch was the big furry alligator thing when she's a kid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It looks really good, actually.
For the time, yeah. Like 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Yeah.
2001, 15 years
Oh,
ago.
15 years ago. Oh, this movie is so old.
I mean, there were plenty of movies with CGI in them at the time.
Yeah,
but
like Citizen Kane.
it's okay. Thank you for taking it seriously. But yeah, I thought it was kind of nice and subtle. In terms of also cinematography, there's just a lot of really cool shots in the film. Cool camera movement. There's these really fun ones where they start close to her and they do like the big swing around. I really liked those shots. And like they shot the whole thing in and around Montmartre, like just sort of the most French area of France you can possibly go. And the Sacré-Cœur is always in the background.
Yes.
So just like on the level of how they show Paris, it's definitely a huge plus. The color saturation, it wore on me. About halfway through the movie, I was kind of like, I just wish it would tone it down a little with the yellow and the orange. So a little bit of a knock. I think I got to go 4 again on this one. I think it's more of a personal sensibilities in that it just wore on me after a while. Like you think of Amelie, you do think of these crazy colors, and the saturation didn't bother me so much as like just painting it yellow all the time. What about you, Jose?
I mean, I agree with most of you on the fact that definitely, like the coloring of the movie, like it brings it up to life. But I do have to say that regardless of the fact that I think that the production value is great, it really sets you, like I'm not even sure what time period we're talking about. I mean, it just feels like it's like the 80s or the 90s.
I'm pretty sure it gives you exact times and dates.
It's just,
1997, 11
it's when
p.m.
Lady Diana.
I know, but
Princess Diana.
I know, but still, I mean, it might just be the fact that that's how France looked. That like I'm not used to live there, so it just feels it still feels for a sense of like, oh, this could be the 60s or the 70s because of how things happen, mostly because how the movie is colored and how the movie is just portrayed, which is to a certain degree is like caricaturesque, but
looks like an old photograph all the time. Right?
Yes, but it has to me, I'm sorry, it has a lingering element of a horror film. Like, I'm sorry. It's yes, it feels like if you had a horror film that is trying to make a point about taking a scene that looks magical in order to then just have Freddy Krueger just jump into it and then just screw it up, it will look like fucking Amelie. You know, it will look exactly like Amelie. It will look like this is a caricature and the other shoe is gonna drop at some point, and then like Tim Curry is gonna come as Pennywise, and then it's gonna just like and I feel it has an element of that, and I think it's the yellow combined with the black that it makes you feel that it's gonna turn into black at some point, which it never does. But we stick together for 20 more years in mind.
So, did you remember what you were gonna add in there, Claire?
No,
all right.
No, what I say, rung a bell.
All right. So how are we gonna score it? What do you guys?
I'm gonna go for 4. You go for
4?
It's really good. It just went a little creepy.
I'm stuck at 5. I think I can't. Yeah,
hey.
I like that it went creepy. I agree with you, but I kind of like that.
That's different.
I think that does agree with the director's sensibilities. We were talking about like Delicatessen's like a horror movie, right?
You saw their movies
very dark.
Not quite. But
I mean, they're kind of like dark fairy tales, and this one is also kind of a dark fairy tale. It's got kind of a Tim Burton-y quality to it.
Yes, I was gonna say that.
Not new Tim Burton, but like old Tim Burton.
Yeah, like real Tim Burton.
Yeah, and just like like a very I think Tim Burton moment along those lines is when she's still a kid and she starts messing with the guy's football. He's like
Football game.
He's watching football and she pulls it
yeah.
out at the right time because it's like, oh, she's also got a dark side.
Yes.
To this
Yeah.
part.
Well, the same thing happens when she's messing with the grocery guy.
Yeah, it continues.
Like that's her dark side coming out.
And those scenes are shot really horror movie, you know, like going up to the doorknob and like the slow like push in and like all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention like the voyeuristic binocular shots from the neighbor watching her commit the crimes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Briana, what would you give this one?
5.
Five.
5's my answer.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You guys are kind of swaying me, but I think I'm going to hold fast at 4. So we'll move right along into editing. This one's always kind of tough because you don't necessarily know what was left on the cutting room floor.
True.
But I think a good thing to kind of base it on is like how well was it paced for you? Was it the right length of movie? Was it too much? So I think judging along kind of those lines is a good way to objectively weigh it from the outside. Jose, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I feel that I mean, we were talking at the beginning of this episode that it has so many stories going around that it feels that. But I don't know if this is an issue of editing or it's an issue of writing. But it could have less stories, less side stories, and more main story. You know what I mean? It feels like you're watching just several like centrifuge stories that just go around Amelie, which is kind of like the point of like her experience in the world, but it does get a little confusing, and I don't know if that is just writing or the editing, because I feel that the cuts, the way that things are portrayed, and as you say, it's difficult to discern between what is responsible the director to hold a shot, specifically design something that way, and what is responsible the editor to say, I'm going to paint or design this in a different way. So because we don't know, I'm going to assume in this case that it's the editor, and I feel that the pace was interesting, the shots were well done.
Well, it's written and directed also. It's written and directed by the same guy, so I think
it could have been a little less.
Throw these decisions all kind of fall into the same.
Yeah.
The same.
So I'm gonna go for a 4, mostly because he lost me sometimes.
Okay. I'm a little torn between a 4 and a 5. Just because I do think there is some stuff that could have been cut. I think especially when you get to around the 2/3 mark, it's kind of like, okay, where's this going already? Mm-hmm. I think we take a long time to get to her love interest, which is her resolution within this story. There's so many side stories that, like, for like the first half of the movie, I was kind of wondering, like, what's going to end this movie? Where is this movie going? So I think that stuff probably could have come in a little sooner. But things are cut together so well. When it does go on its little side tangents, like the editing there is really great. It's actually very close to something like Guy Ritchie's earlier stuff. Like I haven't seen Lock, Stock, but it's very similar to like Snatch in a lot of those scenes. Just these fun asides, and I think they were cut together really well. So I'm a little on the fence. What about you, Briana?
I mean, when I think of like the editing of the movie, because that's not really my forte, is the weirdest part that like pops into my mind is when the grocery clerk goes over to the glass man's house, and he accidentally calls his boss Monsieur, and they do those weird rhyme things with his name. Yeah. And then the guy goes a little too far. He goes a little too crazy. And, like, it's just a weirdly edited part of the movie. And, like, that's what stands out to me the most. I don't know. It's I don't know. So that's what the weird parts that are edited are what stands out to me, and so I guess I would have to give it a a 4. I don't know, like.
You can
Sorry,
give it a
I'm not
3.
forcing.
It's okay.
Yeah.
A 3.
It's okay. You
think
can hate on Amelie. Nobody's gonna say it.
I don't know. Yeah, because
What do you?
I
What
mean,
do you
there
think?
aren't a lot of spots that come out as like, oh, that was weird. So for me, it's just that one moment where I'm like,
Does the
that was
movie? Do
weirdly
you feel like
edited,
the
but that
movie
didn't
moves
seem to match
along?
with the rest.
Do you feel like the movie moves along at a good pace though? Does it
I
overstay
think
its
it does.
welcome or any of that?
Um, no, I think everything has its reason in this movie.
Okay.
So yeah, 4 solid.
All right. What about you,
I
Claire?
think that's what.
I was also gonna give it a 4, for like very similar reasons. But also, I kind of put the like animation stuff in editing for me, like not the like the CGI, but like when they did like the lights around people, and that brought it down a little bit for me because that part, like, I liked the little weird. I don't even know if I should put that in editing though, but I guess I was just like post, like, but
That's fine.
like
However you want to.
the pig like turning the light off, or like her like pet and when she was a kid, or like really nice little like cute things, or like photos talking to you. I like really liked that, but like those like lights coming off people, for some reason that was like, whoa, too much for me. Like I was like, I can't believe that. No, like can't take that. And, I do agree that it totally did lose me at some points, and I think it does well for the story that it has to tell, but I don't know if there could have been like more push, you know?
Well,
Okay.
in defense of that, I mean, if you go to France, sometimes you find people that do just like burst into light.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's normal for French
Really?
people.
Oh.
Okay. Well, in that case,
This is kind of tangentially related. And it's probably also more for writing, going back to the story. But like, everybody is so helpful in this version of Paris. Like anybody she talks to, just automatically answers any questions she might have. I'll tell you about so and so's the whole life. You know, I'll tell you about this like personal details about them.
It's a dream. It's
yeah.
all a dream,
It's
John.
all a dream.
That's why.
Don't take it so seriously. Okay.
So you're saying that this
So-
is Parisians treat other Parisians?
In this movie, I'm saying in this movie. Yeah. When I visited Paris, they were all mean to me. No, that's not true. They were lovely.
They're less.
I think you guys sold me on the 4, though. I'm going to follow the crowd on that one.
right.
So let's talk sound, and this is sound design as well as music choice.
Are we going back at some point to mention anything about the story? We can go to sound.
I mean,
and then
if you want to make an aside, that's fine.
Okay.
If you want to
Because
change your number, that's also fine.
because I do have a side to give about the story.
You go for it now.
Okay, so it feels, and you made me think about this when you guys were talking about the editing aspect of it, and at some point it kind of loses me only because when you watch a movie or a TV series that is based on a series of events, but then there's always the main event. And you connect with the main event. You understand what the stakes are and everything. In this movie, it felt that the main event was she falling in love, but was never established that she was a person that was lacking that. Like there was no, like you just saw a series of events in the life of Amelie that ended on one big event, which is she falling in love. But it was never a stake. It was always like, these are a series of events that happened to her. This is how she dealt with it. This is how she made life for several people better. But it's not like this person has nothing to eat, then it finds food. That there's no real big stakes. It's just another. Her love story is a bigger one from all the stories that.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, I feel like her real goal set up earlier is the decision to be a do-gooder. Right? And to try and make people's lives better. And that probably should be where the main payoff is. You know what? I think I'm going to change my score on the story to a 3.
Oh, wow.
I think you sold me on it.
There you go.
Okay. Wait,
'Cause
here's
it just
another
made
thing.
me-
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it just made me see that, there is kind of a flaw in that, it doesn't set up well that she's that she needs a companion, that she needs a match so well.
There is that part. So, and this is something I picked up this time watching it, and hadn't really picked it up before.
Okay.
Her like heart condition that's not real,
Mm-hmm.
and that like caused her father to not travel, and like she didn't go to school. Like basically this whole like fake heart condition that like theoretically altered her life. But it was misdiagnosed, right? Like that's the point. And so like, but the reason that her heart was beating so fast was because someone was like actually close to her, like close enough to like give her like affection.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of is supposed. I'm not saying like I'm not like trying to make you think.
And I do think
like, it was an interesting like.
I think
it was
that it's about human connection. Like she does need some connection, but
even that was way too subtle. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, it took me 3 times watching it to pick that up. Like that's like if you want that to be like the major point, like that has got to be brought up at least one more time in the whole film. You know,
well, it goes out of its way to point out that she's not a virgin. That she's attempted boyfriends before.
But they don't last long.
But we don't really
see. She doesn't have the same loneliness connection that she does with the love interest. So, like, there's that part when you first see him where he's on the ground, like, looking for pictures, where the narrator says, as Amelie didn't have any friends, he had too many friends, and then they show that he was bullied, and so there's that connection of loneliness.
Yeah, he's her opposite.
That I think is
equal. Right?
Yeah, that I think is set up in the beginning for a lot of the characters. So I mean, I think the main purpose for Amelie is connection, and that's with anything. You know, the box that she finds. So she's going to connect with the boy who once had the box, and it's like the letters that she manufactures for the lonely woman on the first floor whose husband ran away. Like it, you know, I do think that the love story is the culmination. I think it's the culmination of all the stories coming together.
Earn it? That's where I want to, like. I feel like does it earn that love story? Like they spend a little bit of time on it where they play these little games with each other, but. Yeah, I don't know that I feel like it's earned. I think I'm going to stick with the 3. I think I'm changing to that. I'm going to stick with that change.
You know why?
I do want to move on, though.
Okay, that's fine.
This is a big aside. I'm just going to say this.
Just do it.
Let's save it.
So, just do it. So I'll tell you later.
Okay. Let's go to sound. I guess I'll kick us off on this one. Being as how sound is, I guess, is one of my departmental expertises. I love the sound in this movie. And not just the music, but the sound design itself is very good. It's very good at highlighting detail throughout the movie. There's a lot of these like big tracking shots, and the sound really carries us through and like highlights what it's looking at. We always get good sounds when there is a big swooping motion. There's just a lot of attention is paid to the design of the sound and like on highlighting these smaller moments and getting the detail out of those. And then the music is just, you know, we associate the accordion with France, and the music is so quirky and I feel like in line with Amelie that this is for sure a 5 for me. I really love it from a sound design point of view. What about you, Claire?
I also want to give it a 5. I love it too. I kind of am coming at the soundtrack from like a bias just because I've had the CD since French Camp, like of the sound, so I've listened to it over and over again. And I'm just like, oh, it's so beautiful, you know. And so now when I watch it, I'm like, oh, I know this song. It's like that's because it's from this, and I listen to it all the time. But yeah, it's just like, it's really nice. It all highlights the right moments. I agree with you that like the sound design really helps you focus on what needs to be focused on, which is so critical in this movie.
Yeah, especially in a movie that's scattered.
Yeah, and like nothing was obnoxious. Like it wasn't like, oh, that was so overdone, or like, oh, it wasn't too obvious that it's trying to point you there. Like, it wasn't like, oh, well, they only did that so that I could, like, go here. It's like, no, like, it all, like, flowed really nice, even though it was, like, really specific. So, yeah, 5.
How about you, Brianna?
I'm gonna give it a 5 too. I mean, we haven't really talked about how the music plays into the movie, but like again, that dreamlike, whimsical sound is so imperative in that movie, and it really it doesn't just add to it; it creates along with the coloration and the way that everything looks. Like the sound creates that sense of whimsy. So 5. That's mine.
Yeah, I think it really, like you said, it elevates, I think, the mood of the film to how classic it is. How about you, Jose?
I hate it. I'm gonna give it a -15, so I take all your points out of it.
You can't give minus points.
Damn it! Oh, I hate this movie so much. No, the sound is the sound design of this movie is wonderful. Like it reads Paris. It reads what it is what it needs to be at the right moment that it needs to be it, and at the point that, as Claire said, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't get to a point in which it's too annoying or too anything. Like the only over exaggeration of French culture that wasn't aggressive towards me. That was like, I can understand this. I can relate to this. This is Paris. This is how a comic book of a life in La Vie en Rose will look like or will sound like. And then I'll give it a 5.
All right. So this was a big category for us.
We like how this movie sounds.
We like how a movie sounds.
We could listen to this movie.
Yeah. And even if you want to get into like, the narrator sounds good. He's the right, I think, voice for it. Though I think really I'm segueing into our final category, which is performance. So I guess we'll talk about performance. I'll start with what I was just going to say about the narrator. I think he's got a great voice for it. He does talk very fast, which I think is functionally necessary for the film, just because he's spitting out so much information, though a lot of it is, extraneous. Beyond the narrator, though, or including, what did you guys think of some of the acting in the film? Brianna, as an actor, maybe you want to kick us off?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously this movie put Audrey Tautou on the map, and like well deserved. Like she's phenomenal in it, and I mean, she's subtle. Like everything, I think she really thinks about all the facial movements, especially in those close-ups that they do. Like, that the famous picture of her with the spoon in front of her face. Like, there's something she's very specific, and everything else, like all the other actors around her, they're also great. I mean, they add completely to the story. No one is overpowering, which is always great to see. Everyone knows like exactly what they're doing. Like, I don't know. I'm also going to give it a 5 for performance.
All right. How about you, Claire? Thoughts?
So this is another one I'm on the fence on, so I might come back to my actual score, but I'm between like a 4 and 5, because I agree, Audrey Tautou, like, great. I think her love interest did a great job. When you were talking about her being so subtle, that made me start thinking more of a 5, because it's like all the other actors are a little overblown. Like their level is like a little up, and sometimes I do feel like it's overacted, but it's kind of a comic book-esque overacting. Like I feel like it's done on purpose for the story. Like it's not just like bad acting, it's like a choice. And maybe their overblown performances, like slightly overblown performances, help her like subtlety come through. And also her love interest subtlety, because he's also like a very like quiet kind of subtle character. But yeah, I did sometimes, I was a little bit put off, mostly by in Amelie's past, her mother. I hated the way she played that character, and that like because I was looking for like things
like
to,
really overdone,
and it was just so like badly overdone. Like I thought other characters like especially the characters in the diner, like they were they're amped up, but like in a nice way that like made me enjoy watching it happen. But that mom, I just couldn't get past. It was just a little overwhelmingly over the top.
Okay.
So, but I'm still like, I'm pretty much leaning towards a 5 on that.
Yeah, I think casting is a big part of this movie, and I think that goes hand in hand with performance. I think it is really well cast. Those eyes that Audrey has those giant eyes. It's very expressive, and she knows how to use them. It's hard to argue with her performance here because it is, extremely iconic at this point. I also do just like a lot of the French character actors that he throws in his film. What's his name? The guy at the... I'll find his name. The guy at the bar who's tape recording everything.
Yeah.
Dominique Pignon. He's in like every one of the director's films. And he's just got this, very kind of real, very French look to him. Yeah, a lot of just kind of good character kind of performances throughout the film. I agree with the patrons of the bar, all really on point. And even like the newsstand lady is like perfectly cast for what she does. Yeah, I think casting was kind of half the battle on this one. I'm kind of with you. I'm a little bit on a 4 or 5. Because there's no scenes in the movie that like, made me hurt because the characters were hurt, or made me like overjoyed because like I didn't really I didn't have any scenes that were like give me my Oscar kinds of scenes.
Yeah.
That
Right.
like where are the maybe that's loud acting, you might say, or like kind of showy, but I didn't get any of that. So there is subtlety, but I feel like some of the scenes might have been able to be a little bit stronger. The dad is an interesting character. He really underplays it, kind of.
Yeah.
Largely to good effect. I don't know. What about you, Jose? What do you have to say about it? You always have something to say.
I mean, the fact that I agree with how these characters are portrayed, I feel is shooting factor in how I feel they were portrayed, and I feel that for what the intention of this movie is, they were perfectly portrayed. I have to give this movie a 5 on performance because I think that everybody's right on point on it. Now, the fact that these characters might have felt a little too much, a little too less, might just be the universe in which they exist, which I do feel sometimes that they were a little overwhelmed. But were they portrayed like as they were supposed to? Yes. I mean, some of these characters were just annoyingly happy or annoyingly awkward. Like it gets to that point, but I feel that it's part of the editorial statement that they're making.
Yeah, I think that the film is trying to highlight that like everybody is weird and quirky on some level, and so I think every character in the film needed to be weird and quirky for that to come across. The love interest, who's probably the most kind of regular looking guy in the whole movie. He has some really nice moments. He doesn't get a whole lot of time to like really show off, but I do. I'll go back to a moment Briana mentioned earlier, where he discovers that it's the repairman whose photo he keeps finding, and just that moment is one of my favorites, where his face just like lights up. He just gets. He's so happy, unbelievably happy to have the mystery solved. I thought that was a really nice moment. I think. Goodness, it's tough. Do I push over to a 5? What are you doing, Claire?
I'm also still on the fence, I guess. I'm leaning towards a 4 just because, like, if 5 is perfect, like, if I'm like, the acting was perfect, I can't say it. So I have to go with 4.
All right. Yeah, I think there were a number of things I had reservations about. And, some of it is really like kind of hammy. Particularly the guy at the fruit stand, like the mean guy, really like he really kind of overplays his jerkness.
Yeah. But he's obviously like a caricature. Like, you know, he's
Yeah,
not
I mean
a
they're
real...
all kind of cartoons to some
You just keep
extent.
thinking this movie's just
Yeah.
not real at all. It's like, no, but no, it's
Yeah.
real. So
No one's real.
But like the painter is weird and a caricature, and he never I
Right.
never felt kind of like he overplayed his hand there, or even the delivery boy who works for the jerk, like he's given this weird unexplained thing where he never takes his hand out of his pocket. We just kind of have to assume
I actually know.
it's deformed or something.
He's actually a really famous French comedian.
Is this part of his actual persona?
His actual like arm like doesn't work or something, and so he always has that whenever he does roles. He like can never use that arm, but like anyone seeing this movie who's like in France wouldn't recognize him instantly as like this like comic presence. Yeah.
Okay. I thought something I thought was odd was just that like when I first saw the movie, I was much younger, but I thought he would be the love interest in the movie because he's like a decent looking young man, and like she goes to bat for him, and so I remember being kind of like thrown off guard when like later another love interest comes in.
There's always another love interest.
But that's interesting. I didn't know that he had kind of he had that he was bringing to the table already. That's interesting.
It's very French.
I think I am gonna go with a 4 though. So let me just do a quick tally. All right. So are we all set? I guess on our scores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done. Finito.
All right. So the final score.
I want to change all my scores to 1.
Oh, too late. I already asked.
Damn it. Loving
Too late.
So our highest rated movie yet, the third, but thus far highest rated at 87 out of 100.
Holy.
Woo!
Whoa.
Such a good movie, guys.
It did, and I think that's a well-earned 87. Like I said, it gets as you start getting higher in the scoring method, it gets exponentially harder to get those high numbers, just because it needs so much consensus.
I know what you mean. You mean that just because it's a terrible movie, it should not be scored like a terrible movie.
I don't think I said that at all.
I think we should just cut Jose off out of here. Just cut him off.
Yeah, so many.
I love Amelie. It was great to watch.
Yeah, any final thoughts or things you didn't get to throw out there?
Who's the narrator?
Let's find out.
Who is he? He's just a random person who knows all. He's omnipotent.
Yeah, he is omnipotent. Because he knows exact humidity of the weather. I don't see a listing for the narrator.
I do have a final note that I want to bring up, and before the show, it was mentioned, but I have to mention during the show for some reason which I cannot possibly pinpoint into exactly why, because I'm still trying to figure out. When I was back in film school, we were presented. We saw the movie Jules and Jim, and
Which
for
movie?
for some reason, the one that she has the poster in the back, Jules and Jim.
Okay.
That movie. I mean, I thought it was super funny when she came into the and I was like, oh wow, that's the poster that I'm like. When I saw that movie, Jules and Jeans, I thought like, oh wow, maybe the director of Amelie took some inspiration from this movie, because it feels that the narrative is very similar.
Yeah.
And if you see the movie, in the back in the TV, in one of the scenes, Jules and Jim is being played.
She's watching the film Jules and Jim in the movie theater.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I know that, but I never thought.
The one where she sneaks a peek back.
Because I was like, Jules and Jim, like the way it's it's very different, but the narrator is like almost exactly the same. Super fast, like very omnipotent. Like, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. They gotta
Yes.
know. They had
So
to.
I'm not
Oh.
crazy on this, am I? I'm so glad that you agree, and then you have the poster in the back. I mean, this is not coincidence.
To put it in the
Same.
movie, they had to have known. Like if
Yeah.
Absolutely.
obviously, yeah.
I think this is a very self-aware movie overall. A very smart movie.
It is smart.
Clearly a work of passion, and I think something that he was working on a long time. One of his first credits, when doing a little research, was a short with Dominic Pignon, the tape recording guy in the
Crazy
cafe.
ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, the crazy ex-boyfriend, who he's worked on with everything since then, was a short called "Things I Like, Things I Dislike,"
Oh.
or "Things I Like and Dislike," something like that. And so, which is obviously very reminiscent of, especially the early acts of the film, where it's going over like things they like, things they don't like. So I think this is something that stewed with this director for a long time, and that passion really comes across. And like just, yeah, phenomenal film that I think, anyone learning French should definitely see, and anyone who can read subtitles
Should see it.
should also see.
Yes.
Yeah, great stuff. A lot of fun. I guess that wraps this up.
Yes.
Thank you so much. 87 out of 100. Did pretty good.
Yes.
Hey.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Jose, where can the people find you?
Jose in Paradox in Twitter, and JAVCH2 in the other one, Instagram.
Are you using those? Are you using both of those?
I use mostly Instagram.
Also Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. Twitter, I find it's like once in a while I check it. Claire, where can they find you? I'll put it up on the screen as well.
Yeah, because I'm not going to spell it again. But yeah, I am on Instagram at Balcon Louche, to be totally French. That phrase actually came up at French camp, so.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, that's
All
where
comes
we
around.
made it up. Yep, all comes around.
So they can find you on Instagram, right?
Instagram, yep.
All right. Briana, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Do you want to put up anything, or don't?
You can find me on Facebook. That's it.
Find me on Facebook. You have a website, right? Actor's website?
Yes. Yeah, BrianaRedmount.com.
You go to BrianaRedmount.com, caster.
There you go. John.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, both at John in Paradox. It's JON in Paradox. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. You can find our show on YouTube and iTunes, if I can get my stuff together with iTunes. It's always kind of a battle with iTunes. But you can find us every Tuesday on YouTube, and you can friend us on Facebook to get updates on what the next movie is going to be, so you can watch ahead of time. And you can also find the post there. And feel free to comment. Let us know what you thought of the film. The best place is probably either in YouTube comments or right on the Amelie post link that we put up. So let us know what you thought of the film. Let us know what you think of the new format. And thank you so much for joining us again this week. Coming back real quick just to say happy birthday, Jose.
Yay! I actually got a notification.
It is officially your birthday.
I am so old.
Skype.
You got a notification? During the show?
Skype, during the show, Skype was like, it's Jose's birthday. And I was like, that was weird.
He was born.
Yeah, we passed the hour.
Thank you.
So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh,
Till
yeah.
next time.
I guess on that.
Yes.
Adios.
This has been a J Squared production.